I'm Nan McKay, and I would like to introduce you today to Jean Wright. Do you dread the sales part of being an entrepreneur? If only you could just market your product or service and everybody would buy it without you having to pitch it to them. Well, Jean Wright has the answer to making that sales process positive and even empowering to both the seller and the buyer. So Jean has 4 decades of selling experience for the television industry, personnel agencies, sports entertainment, and other companies. And her new book, Selling Your Confidence, tells stories in a fun but meaningful way, which will bring back a lot of memories for you, to anybody who reads it. And you'll learn how to sell without dreading it. So welcome, Jean.
Thanks, Nan. I really am looking forward to talking with you today. Thanks for inviting me.
You got your first taste of sales from becoming a thumb buddy, selling Girl Scout cookies. And tell us a little bit about your parents' reaction and how you overcame their objections.
Well, Nan, I was 11 years old, sitting with my troop in this musty basement of a fire hall in a suburb of Pittsburgh. And I remember the leader moms telling us, hey, girls, we're going to be selling Girl Scout cookies, and all of your efforts will provide funds for us to use in the coming year for all kinds of fun things. And the more you sell, the more we can do with the funds and the money that we make from this. So I really wanted to support my troop, be a team member, and go out and sell those cookies. So I went home and said to my parents, can you sign a permission slip, please? I'd like to go sell cookies. And the first experience I had with them actually saying to me, I don't think that's going to be something we want you to do. I'm not ready to allow you to go out and sell cookies. Why don't we just write you a check? We'll just do that. And that door-to-door salesman thing was not something that they were thinking was how they wanted their child to be represented in the neighborhood. So I didn't realize it, but I had some persuasive skills at that age. And I just started begging them and kind of, continually asking them, well, look, it's something that I need to do to help people get something they love, Girl Scout cookies, and they wait for these every year. So why don't you let me just go out and try it and see if it works and if I'm good at it. And it's going to benefit our troop, and I want to be a team player. So eventually they relented and signed my permission slip. So I was able to go out into the neighborhood and knock on those doors. And I was surprised. I was presenting myself as representing this brand and in my uniform, and people were buying cookies.
I think a lot of moms could resonate with that today, because it's just easier to just write a check, but it's really not teaching their kids the sales process. And that's what you're talking about from 11 years old.
That's correct. And I don't think they were salespeople. I don't think they had that ability to feel comfortable with selling. So they were holding me back because of how they felt about it, not realizing that this was a good activity and a good experience for me. And there were prizes. So that's another incentive that I wanted to go for.
And it set the course for the rest of your life when you look at it.
Little did I know that whenever I was thinking about when did this all start, it kind of was a reality check when my mother, who's in her 90s, said to me, actually, even recently and even years before this, I can't believe I almost held you back from selling cookies. Like it's something that she's still thinking about all these years, because I've been selling for most of my career.
Well, in your book, you talk about presenting the package. How does presenting the package set the stage for the sale?
Well, I think when you are presenting yourself to a potential client and you want them to know, like, and trust you so they'll purchase what you have to offer, you also want to be the expert at what you do, and you want them to respect you for being that person who knows their product well and is able to help them solve their problem or provide delicious cookies that they love to buy. And looking professional is also providing that perception of you're the expert. I think we would prefer to buy from somebody who looks like they care about how they look and how they present themselves. And we as women feel more confident, I think, when we're dressed in the right way, professionally, for the type of work we do. It can be anything from someone who's in banking or someone who's a yoga instructor. I mean, don't you want to feel confident about how you look if you're teaching that kind of class and have the correct uniform on? I mean, that's presenting yourself as that expert in your field. So it could be any type of career choice that you make, and how you present yourself as that expert and presenting your package and knowing that you feel confident about what you have to sell and about yourself and how you come across to people.
I think that's true. And I think they take you maybe a little more seriously that way.
Oh, I think so too. One of the first things, one of my first whenever I was working in my very first big job, and I had been doing pretty well at it, and I had said to my first boss, so what was it about me that you thought was going to help me do my job well? And he said, you dressed for success. And that meant a lot to me, because I didn't know what he was looking for, but he wanted someone to represent his company and his business in a way that he felt that should be represented. And I just dressed the way that they felt was the successful look of a person to represent them. So when you get that response when you're first starting out in your career, it kind of sets the tone for how you feel you want to move forward with how you present yourself. That was an important aspect
The
of
other
my
thing
hiring.
that you talked about in the book were red flags. And tell us a little bit about what are red flags and how should we deal with them?
Well, starting out as a young woman in a career, there are a lot of things we have to learn about office etiquette, how to handle ourselves with other employees in our office, including our bosses or people that we respect and feel that we're being mentored by. And it's still happening today, even though you would think after all these decades that I've been in the career world that these advances that some of the bosses, especially the male bosses, would make would be not happening anymore. So you need to understand when to recognize if there is a red flag out there, something that makes you feel uncomfortable, some attitude or personality of someone who is speaking to you in a way that's not appropriate. And act on those gut feelings if you feel that there's some inappropriateness about how they may discuss how you look or how they want to talk to you about your future and your job.
Outside the office.
Outside of the office, and try not to get involved in a situation that's outside the office. But it's great when someone says, I hired you because you dress for success. That's a compliment, and there is no red flag in that comment. But if there's something more than that they're describing about you that may make you feel uncomfortable, I think we as women have to be aware of that, because presenting your package is so important, but being perceived in the proper way is also very important, and be aware of that.
And maybe knowing how to handle some of the things that you may get. That's what when I was talking about some of those stories really resonated.
Yes.
Certainly with me.
Yes.
I could think back and think, oh boy, I remember that one too.
Well, then it builds your confidence for future experiences, because you can say, I overcame that. And it's not, those are things that I hadn't really started thinking about until I was writing my book. And I thought, those types of things that are in the news today about inappropriate behavior, I can actually think of some of those that happened to me. And how did I handle it at a young age? And I was able to avoid any of that after a few instances of feeling uncomfortable. I used my confidence to keep myself at a more professional level so I wouldn't get in that circumstance again.
Another thing I liked about your book, obviously I read it carefully and enjoyed it. I really loved your comeback to something. Remember when you were talking about those no soliciting signs and the guard, I'm not going to let you buy here thing. And I loved your comeback. In fact, I wrote it down because I thought that is so good. It says, you said, I'm providing information about a service, not soliciting. I thought, well, that's one way to put it. I haven't got you buy them. I thought, how creative that is.
Well, whenever you're sent out into the city, and I was working in a large city at the time, and I had to build my book of business, and I had some clients, but I had to look for more. We were able to enter into large buildings and business offices that some of them were open for us to walk into, and some were a little bit more restrictive. And you had to determine whether or not you were overstepping your bounds, but you wanted to get some new clients and get some people interested in what you had to offer. So there were at times signs that said no soliciting. And if you feel that you're that aggressive salesperson, or that's technically what those signs are for, those people who are the aggressive types who just want to get in there and bowl over that person at the front desk. You have to realize there's a gatekeeper in every office. There's that person who's protecting the property and the people that work behind them in those sacred offices where they don't want to be bothered by someone just coming in off the street. So even if it was a no soliciting sign, I mean, there are ways that you can get in there and just be kind. I think that's the main thing about cold calling, is learn to be kind and not come in with that agenda. I have to get in there. I have to talk to somebody right now. I mean, that's a big turnoff. I wouldn't want someone to say that to me, but starting with some conversation and talking to that gatekeeper as a person, not just like the person who's the protector or the security guard, which they are, but getting into some conversation and then asking, I would love to speak to the person who's responsible for whatever that is that you need to talk to them about. And if they're saying something like, well, we don't have appointments that we set up on the spot with anybody, or there really isn't any soliciting here in this building, so we really don't appreciate if you're coming here trying to meet somebody without an appointment. And then just kind of relax a little bit, let them know that you're not there as the aggressor, that you're just there to provide your card and information. And if that's the case, I would really appreciate it if you could pass this on to the person in charge, the person that makes those decisions, and get back to me. But could you tell me who that person is so that I'll know when they call me who to expect to call? You want to leave with a name, at least, if nothing else, or a business card or something that has a little bit more information. But being nice and not acting as an aggressor is going to put somebody at ease who you're trying to get information from. And that's your agenda, basically, is to get more information about who it is you need to speak to.
I also appreciated the questions to ask in specific sales situations. And some of your questions were, I thought, again, so right on. Like, well, what do you think is reasonable for all that I'm offering to you in this package? I mean, that is a great question. When somebody's saying, well, I don't think I can do this, I don't have the money or whatever. Talk about that a little bit. What
Oh,
kinds of
right. I mean, you
questions
get through your
can you
entire presentation and you're telling the person how you can help them solve their problem, help them be able to buy your product and be happy with the results. And you've addressed all their objections as to, well, what if this, and how about that? And what would you charge for that? Okay, so you've answered all the questions. And then they'll say, well, that's just too expensive. And a lot of times what somebody thinks is expensive may not be really expensive to you. Like what is that number? And so if you just end the conversation with, oh, I'm sorry, it's too expensive. Well, we didn't really get down to the nitty gritty of what that is. Perhaps they were expecting to spend, a few $100s less. Is there something you can negotiate with them? I mean, there's always room for discussing and negotiating a little bit about what you have to offer and what it is they want to, I mean, as long as it's within reason, that you can discuss this before you end the conversation and not get the sale. There are opportunities for you to make sure that they have all their questions answered. Perhaps they're not making the decision because they still have doubt about something. You thought you may have covered everything, but they're not sure, and they'll just say, well, I have to think about it, and they're going to leave and walk out the door, and then get that confidence in yourself, like, well, I think there's something that I must have missed. I think that they're confused about something. So we need to continue our conversation. So let's make sure that we get that cleared up so that we can move forward.
What would be your best advice for a new business entrepreneur?
Well, a lot of entrepreneurs today, especially if they're a small 1 or 2 person operation, they want to get something started on their own. They've been in the big corporate world and they've had somebody do their marketing. They've had somebody do their accounting. They've had someone, worry about PR, all those things, and personnel. And now guess what? They are doing everything. They are wearing all the hats. They're hiring, they're marketing, they're just being pulled in so many different directions. And then they have to be selling. And I think that's a very scary word for a lot of people. And I'm finding that's the case when I speak to women entrepreneurs who, I ask them, are you passionate about what it is you're selling? Are you passionate about what the services that you're providing? And they're so excited about it, and they want to tell people about it, but they feel like, I don't want to sell it. I don't want to use that word sales. And because they have these stereotypes in their mind about all that aggressive behavior that they've had put toward them when they've been wanting to buy something, especially a big ticket item like a car, they feel like, oh, I don't want to be that person because I feel intimidated. So what they have to understand is their passion for their product or their service can be translated into just feeling confident about that. And talking to people, build a relationship with people. And, you're really selling something, but you're not technically a salesperson, if you don't want to call yourself that, but you are promoting yourself and selling in a way that is very important to keep your business going. So you have to learn about all these types of things to do. You need some basic foundation for selling, but don't put the pressure on yourself that I have to sell. If you're just building relationships with people, talking about your passion, how you can help them, it should come much easier to you. So I think a lot of people worry that as you're a solopreneur, someone who has to start selling themselves, oh my gosh, that's another job. So it can be very overwhelming. But just know that you are that expert, and you are that person that's going to help somebody solve their problem. And that's just how selling happens when you don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to be a salesperson.
Can you give us your best entry line on a cold call?
Hello, what a beautiful office you have. Oh, yes, we just had it remodeled recently. well, how have you been working here a while? I'm sure that you really must enjoy being here. And then you just kind of soften it up. And then you go in for, hi, my name is, and I work for, and I would love to speak to the person who handles personnel services or something like that. Like at the time when I was first cold calling, I was selling that personnel services. So, kind of get somebody, uh, at ease, get them in a conversation, and then go in for that information that you need, because by that time they're already liking you enough that they probably will answer your question and perhaps help you with what you need. There's nothing wrong with being kind and conversational.
So many solopreneurs today, I think, are working on the internet and doing things through Zoom. And so
Yes.
there isn't necessarily a gatekeeper, a person that they go through. You are trying to talk to that person directly.
Yes.
What would you say your best opening line is in that situation?
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of our marketing now is done on the phone, on emails. I would also say that please try to do in-person networking as well, because there's a lot available within. You may do business all over the country, or you may be more localized, but cold calling can also be in a personal one-on-one networking situation. You don't know that person that you're meeting, and you need to make a first impression right away whenever you're introducing yourself. So that is a form of a cold call. And then on Zoom or on a phone, like if you're calling somebody, people are so afraid of this phone. They're afraid. A lot of times you look at that phone, you say, I have to make 10 calls today. I put time aside. I don't know any of these people I'm calling. It can be a very frightening experience to feel that you have to get on that phone and maybe someone's picking it up that isn't the person you need to talk to, and you have to get past that. That's a gatekeeper as well. Or you're calling that person directly and they may not pick up the phone because they don't know your number. So that's also, I find texting is also, if you have a phone number for someone, maybe you've met them briefly, but you know you have to call them to make an appointment. So you have their number. Texting is really not a terrible thing to try as your first attempt, because they will be more likely to respond to you through a text than feel like they're being interrupted by a phone call somewhere. They don't know who you are because there's no ID on your call. But if you have their number and are texting them, you can say, hi, we met. I would like to meet. Can I call at this time? You're setting up an appointment just for the call. And that's a little bit warmer than just coldly calling somebody with a number that you're not being identified with. At least in a text, you can identify yourself right away. Hi, and would you mind if I called you at this time? So you're giving them an opportunity to be prepared for you and know that that was you, and not just see a phone number show up. I think that you should keep that in mind, that texting is a good way to reach people in a way that gets them on their time and not having to pick up a phone right away and feel like they have to answer to somebody they don't know. On Zoom calls, you're usually introduced in a situation that you already are. Maybe you can explain to me a little bit more about how you feel a Zoom call would be a cold call.
Well, if you met someone in a networking group,
Same idea.
You happen to be in a Zoom room, or you just see their face over there,
Right.
Along the side. And so then you're thinking, how that person might have something that would be interesting. And you often then get their name to contact them in Zoom, not in Zoom, in LinkedIn or something like that.
Yes. I've been finding that's been very helpful on a Zoom call. Whenever you are maybe listening to a presenter or you're being introduced in a group of people you haven't met before, and on the chat, you are sharing LinkedIn information. I have connected with many people on LinkedIn just from being on a chat in a Zoom type of situation. And it gives you the opportunity to look them up and see what they're all about, and see if there's some mutual connection that might be helpful to you, or they may think for you as well. And that in today's world seems to be a very good way. It's almost like being at a networking event, but it's virtual, and you're meeting somebody in that way.
You know, the other thing I keep thinking is it's probably a good idea to differentiate yourself as quickly as you can. In other words, your business. There's so many people in coaching today, loads of people. And you get lifestyle coaching, and you get business coaching, get marketing coaching, sales coaching, whatever you're doing on coaching.
Right.
So differentiating yourself from other people early on, is that important in a sales situation?
Well, for instance, in my case, I feel that I'm coaching women or entrepreneurs who want more confidence in their abilities, rather than helping you make $2 million next year within 6 months, where a lot of sales coaches have that dollar goal that you want to attain as an aggressive salesperson. There are certainly many coaches that do things like that. And there are many coaches that have their 5-step program to making such and such in a certain amount of time. And my differentiation is, how do you feel when you're going through the sales process on all those different levels in the sales pipeline? How do you feel about yourself? And when you're doing the presentation, when you're doing the negotiating, when you're doing the closing, when you're doing the retention and follow-up and customer service, how do you feel about yourself and how you're helping the client and keeping that client? And it's not so much, of course, you're achieving certain goals that you want to make for yourself so you can make a living, but let's feel good about how we do this and how our confidence can carry us through different situations that may occur during the sales process. And that's where I feel my success has been. And I think I can help other women and entrepreneurs get to that level of success, which differentiates me from other people who might just be sales trainers.
Yeah. Sales promoter. You've been very helpful, Gina. I don't know if you can see the book very well if I hold it up here, but Jean's book is Selling Your Confidence. And that's what she means by, she is looking for people who really want to increase their confidence or feel a little more confident about selling. So great book. And Jean, do you have anything to add for people? Any takeaways or anything that you'd like them to do?
Well, I often hear women say, I can't do what you do. I can't, I've heard that all through my career. I can't do this. And taking negativity out of your life is so important in so many ways. And no matter what we're doing with our careers, our personal life, personal health challenges, which I've also outlined in my book, take out negativity and put more positivity on yourself, and that you are an expert at what you do, and that you can do this. You can sell things, but don't get bogged down in that traditional sales aggressor type of person, that you're not that person. And don't tell yourself that that's who you are, because you know that you have passion for what you do, and you know that you're really good at what you do, and use that confidence about that to sell yourself and sell yourself in your business. So I just want people to know they can do this and feel positive about yourself, because that will carry you through everything.
And grab her book and read all about it.
Yes, I'd love for you to do that. There are a lot of great stories in there,
Yes.
and a lot of tips too. And hopefully, if you feel like you are interested in talking more about how these tips can help you become even more successful and some one-on-one coaching, as Nan was saying, that's something I can do, and that's something that's a little different than the traditional sales coach can provide. I call myself a sales confidence builder.
That sounds good. Thank you so much, Jean. It was great talking with you.
Thanks so much, Nan. I really enjoyed speaking today about my book and about my career, and I'm hoping that I helped some people out there today.
I'm sure you did.
Thanks.